Hey, what up, everybody? We are back with another set review video, and this time we're going to be talking about the best cards out of Secrets of Strixhaven to hopefully improve the competitive metagame. So, class is back in session. Let's get to work. But before we get into today's little bit of notes, don't forget like and subscribe to the channel. All right, make sure you hit that little red button, hit the bell, do all the crazy YouTuber things, and obviously help a teacher out. But let's go ahead and talk about kind of the reasoning behind us doing this. We're really going to focus on standard and modern since standard's going to be the upcoming regional championship format. Shout out to everybody that's going to the regional championships in, God, what is it now? We're going back to DC later this year. I want to say this one might be in Virginia again, too. So, shout out to everyone going to that. Standard actually still looks fun despite all of the Universes Beyond nonsense that's there right now. And obviously, Modern's the current RCQ format. Good luck in your RCQs. And let's see if maybe you can teach your opponents a lesson or two with these cards out of Secrets of Strixhaven. Now, the one thing that we really need to do, and I say this as the resident history teacher, is we need to study the classics. We need to go ahead and look back at the past to study the greatest of greats and see what we can learn from our ancestors. Out of Secrets of Strixhaven, we've gotten a new mechanic called Prepared. And whenever a creature becomes prepared, kind of like a repeatable version of an adventure, we can cast whatever spells on the other half of the card. So with cards like Grave Researcher, Emeritus of Truce, really the entire Emeritus cycle, Harmonized Trio, and Tam Observant Sequencer, which I think are probably some of the more powerful creatures with prepared on them and decent spells on their prepared side, these are probably going to be some of the ones that I feel like can have the greatest impact on the standard and modern metagames. Grave Researcher, once it's prepared, which it's prepared when there are three or more cards in your graveyard, particularly creature cards, which isn't a hard thing to accomplish in modern in the right deck, looking at you, Gorios, you can play Grave Researcher's Reanimate side, which says you get to take any creature card from your graveyard and put it onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to that card's mana value, but alright, sure, you're reanimating Gristlebrand, sure, you're reanimating Atraxa, or maybe if you want to get even weirder, Archon of Cruelty. That's fine. That's all well and good. Lose that life, but you get to gain a lot off of powerful ETBs, the lifelink effect. Sure, do you maybe miss out on the Goryo, like, haste? Yeah. But I feel like just reanimate in standard, reanimate in modern is strong enough. And on top of all of that, Grave Researcher surveils one. That's huge. Now, sure, do you have to worry about Thraben Charm out of your opponent's Boros energy deck? Yeah. Do you have to worry about Rest in Peace in Standard? Absolutely. But you're never just running this in a straight up mono black shell. You're definitely going to have another color so that you can deal with those problematic threats that you can obviously see coming from a mile away. Emeritus of Truth, which is definitely more of a control card than I would say just a straight up aggro version of a card. It says as long as an opponent has more creatures than you, this creature becomes prepared. Now, it only does that once, which can be a little bit of an issue. But once it's prepared, you get Swords to Plowshares. Arguably one of the strongest removal spells that white can ever have. Now, I would not be surprised if this card ended up weirdly potentially seeing play in Legacy. Maybe. Well, probably not Legacy because Legacy is a crazy format. Be ready next week for when I go back to that format. But definitely in Standard, definitely in Modern, probably in Pioneer too. This card can do a lot of work. Boros Energy is a big threat in Modern, and chances are, if you're facing down that deck, you're going to be looking for, obviously, anything to deal with a Johnny, to deal with Ocelot Pride, to deal with Guide of Souls, and so many other cards. Exile it. It doesn't kill it, which doesn't trigger a Johnny. Sure, the opponent's going to gain life, which might be relevant for an Ocelot Pride if it stays on the battlefield, but just in combat, this can eat Ocelot Pride. Just in combat, your Emeritus of Truth can eat most creatures on the battlefield. And you make a 1/1 black and white Inkling with flying. If your opponent decides to send their creatures flying, congratulations, you can make a flying blocker with this. Or, if you really want to get weird, throw that token at your opponent, and then just Swords to Plowshares their actual threat. That's a pretty solid maneuver. Doing this in Standard in the Momo deck could actually be a house. 1 mana instant speed removal is pretty good. Now, rest in peace to Screaming Nemesis. If it was still around, this card would be lights out. Alright, this card would be just so good. All the red decks would just suddenly start splashing white to throw this in there, and oh, you can't gain life anymore. Ha ha, sucks to suck. And it would be really good to kind of break the mirror too. Harmonized Trio, congratulations to Prof, Nikachu, and whatever other Merfolk players exist out there. Now you've got another 1 drop. And this creature can become prepared over and over and over again. And what better way to take use of over preparing than by brainstorming? Just full on Jimmy Neutron brain blast your way out of any problems. Draw 3 cards, put things back on top. And considering that Modern has fetch lands, now we can start micro decisioning and looking at our cards, putting things back, and cracking fetch lands to hopefully get out of bad scenarios. Now, in Standard, Harmonized Trio's probably not going to be the best card, but it's still got something. What I do think will be good in Standard, however, is Emeritus of Abundance and Tam Observant Sequencer. Emeritus of Abundance, as long as you have 8 or more lands, can become prepared, and it enters prepared. Why does that matter? Because Regrowth is the card that gets stapled onto this. And it's a 3/4 with Vigilance. Congratulations, Regrowth, and get back any of your little green creatures that get absolutely blown out by every single removal spell in the Standard format. Yes, please. Tam Observant Researcher. Yes, it's a legend, but you know what else was a legend? That people definitely maybe undervalued, especially with it being an uncommon? Tachiova. Alright, Tam says that whenever a land enters under your control, Tam becomes prepared. And then what can you do? It's not Growth Spiral, but Deep Sight, while it's definitely not a card that we've ever seen before, lets you draw a card, gain a life for green and a blue. Alright, you are basically just a hair away from Growth Spiral, and being able to get a lot of extra card advantage is huge. Commander players are definitely going to love Tam a whole lot, but I think Tam's actually got a decent shot in Standard. I think Emeritus of Abundance has a decent chance in Standard. And I think we can all learn a little bit from the ways of the past. But then we also have the control mages that we have to think about. Control has always been seen as this dirtly type of deck, but now it's starting to dirtle maybe a little bit less. Alright, yes, in Modern, the blue-white or blue-white whatever control decks have the Isochron Scepter Orum's Chant combo that they can run, and then you're basically just playing your own little version of Lantern Control. But what if you had a card like Jadzi, Steward of Fate, that lets you, since it enters prepared, cast Oracle's Gift? You can make a fractal. And guess what? Since it's Modern, you have access to Teferi Time Raveler. So you can bounce it back to your hand and make a ton of fractals. But guess what? Not only are you making a fractal, then you put X 1/1 counters on each fractal you control. So you're making a big line of beaters that's really strong, And Jadzi also gets you some extra card advantage. Now, will this card be as good in Standard? It's definitely debatable. Is it definitely competing with Teferi in Modern? Yes, it is. But I think that just being able to get that repeated value off of it, not only off of the creature side itself, but also on the prepared spell side, can be huge. And then there's Exhibition Tide Caller. Alright, whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, target player mills 3 cards. If 5 mana was spent to cast that spell, target player mills 10 cards instead. Congratulations. You're never actually casting an instant or a sorcery spell for 5 mana in Modern, but in Standard, you get real close. Avatar's Wrath is a 4 mana spell, but you also have a lot of other interesting cards. And this set has definitely given us a lot of good X spells. Mathemagics and Traumatic Critique deal X damage to any target, and target player draws 2 X cards. I'm a social studies teacher, not a math teacher, but I can tell you that that is a buttload of cards that you can make an opponent draw with Mathemagics. Sure, is it a blue draw 1? Yeah, kind of boring. But if you can go up from there, things definitely get interesting. The later you go in the game, the better Mathemagics can get. Make your opponent draw out of the game, basically Ancestral Recall, mill 3, make you draw however many I want. That's solid. But then, there's Mana Sculpt. Again, the Commander players are probably rejoicing with this set because now they get cheaper versions of some of the most expensive, almost game changers that they can play. Mana Drain meet Mana Sculpt. Yes, you have to have a wizard on the battlefield to get the colorless mana equal to the mana value of the card that you countered, but oh, Jadzi's a wizard. Exhibition Tidecaller's a wizard. And wouldn't you know that the wizarding world of Strixhaven has a crap ton of that creature type? Mana Sculpt is a great rare that is going to see so much play in a bunch of different formats. Expect this to probably be a $2 to $5 card at a minimum, the more that we see cracks getting packed. Packs getting cracked. Crazy. But Control, definitely not dirtling anymore. It's going big. It's doing math. And math will make your opponents hurt. But maybe we can just make aggro decks better by comparison. Now, this is where we're definitely going to start to get away from Modern just a little bit to talk a lot more about Standard. Because Standard is home to a lot of good aggressive decks right now. You've got mono green. Technically, you've got green white. You've got prowess. You've got the red white pingers deck. There's a lot of good things there. And basically, every single one of these cards can slot into almost any of those decks with ease. Planar Engineering, for those of you that are on Twitter, have seen the turn 3 combo that Planar Engineering can create in the format if you go turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Mosswood Hydra, and then turn 3 land Planar Engineering, and then boom, you've made just a big old creature basically out of nowhere. Or you can play Germination Practicum, turn all of your mana dorks into 3/3s or 3 whatevers, and then since it's got the Paradigm mechanic, which is basically a new version of Epic, you get a version of that spell at the beginning of each of your first main phases for free. So you just keep that practicum going over and over and over again. It's final exam season. Good luck to everybody that's in college right now. You're going to be seeing these exams over and over and over again. Sounds a little bit like a nightmare, or if you're playing a Blink deck, maybe it's a little bit of a daydream. Jeskai Blink has definitely shown up in Standard across the last couple of competitive seasons that it was around. And now they've got another card. They've got another blink spell. Did they really need another one after Lorwyn Eclipsed? Maybe not. But having one with flashback that makes your creature stronger, that's definitely worth it. Prismari Charm is over here to basically be, really, a better version of the old Is It Charm. Now you get to Surveil 2, draw a card at instant speed. Why is that good? It's good because elementals exist. You can deal 1 damage to each of up to 2 targets. Keep in mind, it doesn't say target creature. It's any target. Or you can just get a 2-mana bounce spell for any non-land permanent. That's huge. Lorehold Charm is great for the red-white aggressive deck in Standard that wants to ping you to death, because you can make all of your little pingers, all your little dudes, get a little bit stronger and they gain trample, or you can reanimate something at instant speed. What better way to take your stadium homie that you sacrifice and deal damage to an opponent? What better way to just make a turn go off than by sacking your stadium headliner and then bringing it back on your opponent's end step? It is perfect. Erode is now Standard's version of Path to Exile. Sure, you're not exiling them, but you're destroying them. You're wiping them out of existence, and in exchange they get a basic land card. Oh no! I get more lands. Don't use this against any green player, but every other deck definitely has some solid targets for it. The one thing that I actually think will be super good in Modern is going to be Hardened Academic, but it's not going to be good in the deck that you think it will be good in. This won't be the card that you see in Boros Energy, though. Being able to discard a card at will to give this lifelink, and then maybe get some value off of a Flage, not the worst. I think this card actually has a home in Hollow One. Alright? The weird Hollow One, Hollow Vine decks that have shown up that have been red-black throughout most of their history. Keep in mind, Hollow One is colorless. Vengevine, sure, it's green, but you're never actually paying green for it. Maybe Hardened Academic is just there to make the deck red-white. There's lots of good white cycling spells, so why not? Extra cards to discard, punish your opponent, and maybe if you want to create a really aggressive discard deck in Standard, which there is a Rakdos version, as a certified Mardu lover, maybe this should be a consideration somewhere in your curve. We're making aggro decks better. We're throwing some value out there. We're trying to make some changes to things. And I think this little handful of cards can definitely change both formats, arguably for the better. Or maybe you're a little bit more of a classical type of person. Maybe you like the 3-4 color mid-range soup format that was Tarkir Dragonstorm. Maybe you're the domain player in Modern. We've had Leyline of the Guild Pack for a while, and it's shown up to various degrees in Standard, especially after Bloom Tender came out. So why don't we just start making everything Rainbow Soup? Alright, Vibrant Outburst is out there to deal damage to any target. It's a 2-mana lightning bolt. It's lightning strike with an extra color and an extra effect of tapping up to 1 target creature. That's not bad, but guess what? We've got another charm, the Silver Quill charm. And it's also dealing some damage. What better stuff can we do than having basically 8 lightning helixes in our Standard deck, in our Modern deck? And we get to exile creatures with power 2 or less in Modern? That's an insane rate. Now, a card that everyone kind of pooped on when it was first spoiled is Together as One. Which, yes, converge, draw X cards, it deals X damage to any target, you gain X life, where X is the number of colors spent to cast this spell. Yeah, you're never going to get 6 off of it, but you can get 5. And with Leyline, with Bloom Tender, you can pull that off real easily. This could be a potential turn 3 that you can cast this. That's really solid. For each color among permanents you control, guess what? Turn 3, this is making 5. Add an extra mana, and you can just start burning your opponents for a crap ton of damage, gaining a huge amount of card advantage. And yeah, if you're playing this in Modern, sure, it might have a little bit of competition with Scion of Draco, but also, that's an insane rate for a deck that really just wants to use as many colors as it can. And what good is a look at confusing alternate timelines without looking at things dying? All right, there's a lot of graveyard shenanigans in this set. And Ral Zarek, guest lecturer, the is it Prince is now Orzhov? Now, I haven't read much on the secrets of Strixhaven lore beyond the fact that this is definitely an alternate timeline, but if Ral is there and he's Orzhov, Tomek definitely did a number to this man. But now he's surveilling too. He's making any number of target players discard cards. He's reanimating small dudes, and thankfully, he's still flipping a bunch of coins, but he's making opponents do very black things, skipping their turn. Now, again, commander players are going to go crazy for this card. Is this Liliana of the Veil? No. But in Modern, there's a chance that you could see this being run in a Goryo's Vengeance type deck. And despite how weird it is, there have been a number of black based mid range decks that have popped up in Standard. Being able to kind of sculpt your deck a little bit, discard some cards from your opponent's hand, these are actually really good abilities. The +1 is definitely the most questionable of Ral's abilities, but every other part seems really solid. There's a chance that there is a black-white or a black-green, or even, forgive me here, an Abzan deck with some reanimation shenanigans that wants Ral Zarek in there. Museo Vane's new Dean is a legendary creature with flying that makes a pest, but that's not the part that matters. It's got infusion. If you gain life this turn, return up to one target creature with mana value X or less from your graveyard to your battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. For anybody who's watched this channel before, you've seen me play Mardu Energy. This is a card that I would definitely at least try as a one of in Mardu Energy, just so I can keep bringing things back over and over and over again. Dina's Guidance is definitely going to be huge in Standard, just being able to tutor up a creature and put it into your hand, or for those of you who are cubers out there, maybe put it in your graveyard, or if you're playing a weird brew in Modern, throwing it into your graveyard and reanimating it somehow. There's a lot of potential there. At 3 mana, is it going to be the most played card in Modern? Absolutely not. But for Standard, I like it. Being able to tutor up your strongest pieces, especially if you're going to be a mid-range deck, pretty impressive. Cauldron of Essence, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Congratulations, this is a Goryo's card. Are you going to be running this in Goryo's? There's a chance. There's a lot of tension with things in the 3 mana value slot in Goryo's, but you absolutely can. But its tap ability, being able to sacrifice a creature and then returning a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, really good. If your Yawgmoth or anything else gets removed, this can get it back. Are you going to have to sacrifice something? Yes, but you've got Undying Creatures to make that really good. In Standard, there's a lot of tokens that you can make. Wink, wink. Museo does just that. You can get some creatures back, and since you're gaining life off of sacrificing that pest, you're going to gain some more. Now, Postmortem Professor is actually kind of an interesting one that I actually believe will work out better in a different archetype that we're going to talk about in just a second, but When it attacks, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. It can't block, which is kind of rough, but it returns to the battlefield as long as you exile an instant or a sorcery. Alright, there's a lot of this effect in Standard, but very seldom do they actually have relevant effects like causing your opponent to lose life, even if it doesn't connect. That's huge. And in Standard, yes, we've already got a version of Return to the Ranks or Return the Ranks that gets you everything that's mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Fix What's Broken is the greatest piece of synergy. You pay X life and return each artifact and creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Ral plus this card goes nutty. Now, obviously, surveil a lot, fix what's broken, throw all your creatures, throw all your artifacts into the graveyard, fix what's broken, pay some life, and get everything back. Fantastic. Are there a lot of good value creatures in this set that you want to get back and throw into the graveyard? Maybe not. But there's synergy there. And that's what we really want to take advantage of when we're making these graveyard goodie style decks. But what if we just burn them instead? Alright, bear with me here. This is me maybe dreaming a little bit more than I need to. Alright, I have played Dragon's Claw before. But what about Demon's Horn? We can gain some life. Okay, that's not really burning anybody. So why don't we talk about it? Well, we can start doing things like bloodletting. We can start taking out our opponents. And Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, has been a big proponent of black burn decks throughout the history of the MTG Goldfish channel. This card seems like something that would be at the top of his list. Or we can talk about Delian Fell over here. Gain some life. 0. Draw a card, lose life. -3. Destroy target creature. Delian Fell is arguably a lot better than Ral Zarek, but that's just my hot take right now. But the part that matters with Delian is his -6, which you can do on the second turn that you have him on the battlefield. That's crazy. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. A lot of the black spells in this format, in this set, have you gaining life in some capacity. You can turn Delian's plus ability, after you get that emblem, into just a guaranteed lightning bolt to your opponent's face. You can turn Bloodletting into a guaranteed shock. And, here's the crazier part, Silver Quill can basically turn every single prepared spell into a casualty spell. If you pair Silver Quill with Delian and Aaron and Leech Collector all together, you're just reanimating and causing a lot of damage to happen to your opponent's face. This is an insane deck. Definitely one worth considering, but again, it's a little spicy. It's definitely out there. Does this have some potential in Modern? Sure, if you're playing in a budgety type of sense. But in Standard, this is kind of hot. Now, obviously, you don't have Demon's Horn, but hey, there's still plenty of other things out there. Or we can talk about the card advantage engine that is definitely going to ruin Standard yet again. If you were not already sick of Gran basically creating Grancestral Recall, then get ready for your opponents to enter the flow state. Alright? This card is going to let you look at the top 3, put one of them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom, but if you have an instant or sorcery card, you put 2 of them in there. Congratulations. Izzet Lessons in Standard is getting that much worse. You're going to see flow state, and you're going to see every other disgusting lesson card being played against you. Every single Izzet Lessons player will see their entire deck every single game you need to be able to figure out a way to deal with them because they're gonna be a problem. Alright, Card Advantage is the name of this set. And if it's not cards going directly into your hand, it's being able to replay cards from your graveyard with flashback. Congratulations, the old mechanic now has a card named after it. Does it have flashback on it itself? No, but you can flashback the flashback so that you can flashback all your other spells in your yard. Or just steal the show. Discard a bunch, draw a bunch. Deal a bunch of damage to your opponent's creatures based on the amount of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. I would not be surprised if Is It Lessons in Standard plays at least either one Steal the Show in their main board or somewhere in their sideboard, because this effect of being able to choose or just do both is wild. Now, as a Boros Energy player and as someone who definitely enjoys the idea of being able to utilize my graveyard for things, I really like Arc of Hunger. Being able to mill a card and then play that card this turn is really cool. And back before the One Ring was banned, we got to see a different version of this card at 2 mana, but also using energy. It's 4 this time, but it's repeatable. And you get to gain some life. Maybe there's something there. Now, everyone says that, oh no, Storm is terrible. Storm is bad. But the Storm is approaching, and we need to be ready. Are you going to see Lorehold, the Historian, at any table in Modern? Absolutely not. But could you see it in Standard, especially in the Jeskai Control deck, or the old Jeskai Dragons deck? You could. And turning your biggest spells into a Miracle 2 is gross. So that's definitely worth considering. And remember, Opt also exists in Standard. Lorehold that stays around for a turn, and then an Opt turning anything into a Miracle spell on your turn is really scary. And that's before we even look at Lorehold's actual ability itself. Horrible. Now, it's trash. It is hot garbage. But Prismari, the inspiration, is there too. Nobody that's not a Commander player is going to be playing this card in Standard. You're not going to reanimate this card somehow. Don't even pretend that you're gonna. But congratulations. You now have Otter Ral from Bloomborough and Prismari that can give your spells Storm. Vile. But again, 7 mana, 7/7 with Ward 5, you're never going to see that. Don't worry about it. It's trash for a reason. But if I had one wish, I would love to see a Quandrix deck pop off in Standard. Let's go ahead and just watch the Mississippi River flow. Give us a standard version of the Mississippi River deck from Legacy, because that would be wild. Or, because I am a filthy Ragavan player and because I love playing with other people's decks, let's see Nita pop off. Let's just start stealing all of our opponent's things. Let's start sacrificing creatures that we steal from our opponent, and then start casting a bunch of spells that we don't own. It's fantastic. Or, because I am a little bit of a Storm girly, Blazing Fire Singer, casting Seething Song, and maybe we can blink it, maybe we can bounce it and replay it, and just start to go off from there. There's a lot that's happening in Standard. There's a really weird chance we could see an infinite mana Blazing Fire Singer deck, and I think we've got the pieces for it. It's just a matter of putting it together. But if I had another wish, because I'm on my Chris Brown stuff right now, I'm on my Neo stuff right now, I'd like to see you subscribe to this channel. Leave me some comments down below. Tell me if there are any cards that you think I missed out of Secrets of Strixhaven that should have made this list. But until next time, when we're back in the Legacy meta, peace.